Hi, welcome, and thanks for watching. This video is a follow-up video to the first debt confession video that I made a couple of weeks ago. That previous video talked about the debt that we have, and it summarized why I didn't think that I should be concerned about it. But unfortunately, we've had some changes in our personal finances and in our lives that has resulted in some additional debt that I am not as nonchalant or confident about. Unlike in the previous video, I find myself struggling a lot more to be indifferent to this debt simply because it is consumer debt and it is traditionally the kind of debt that almost everybody universally considers bad debt. So I'm changing my tune a little bit. I figured it's only fair that if I'm willing to share when the debt doesn't bother me, I should be equally as transparent if the debt does bother me. Like I said, this video provides an update on all of that, but first, here's a little bit about me.
Hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you for watching. Here's a little bit about me. My household consists of myself, my husband, and my toddler. My mom also lives with us, but she's not included in our finances. We live in a high cost of living city in the Northeast. My husband and I both went to graduate school, but fortunately, we no longer have student loan debt. I work in banking and he works in aviation. I take care of the family's finances, and I love my role as the self-appointed CFO. I love to talk about all things money, whether it's investing, saving, or making money. I look forward to sharing a wealth building journey with you. I look forward to getting to know you, and I hope you enjoyed this video.
Okay, let's get into it. In this debt confession update, my goal is to give you the background story of how we got to where we are right now, the final decisions that we made that led us there, the buying process, and I also want to do a breakdown of the debt as well as a strategy for paying it off. And then finally, I want to cover the lessons learned. You're probably wondering, how did we get here? Well, we are a two-car household, and in September, my husband's car died. Here's what happened. One day he was driving down the road and the car literally went up in smoke. We had just serviced the car, we got new brake, new everything with the regular maintenance because it was over 120,000 miles. So we were really confused about what was going on. Well, it turned out that the radiator hose clamp had broken off and the hose got disconnected and the coolant had gone everywhere, which overheated the engine, which eventually blew it up. We ended up getting a quote for $10,000 for a new engine. When we talked to the service people and we told them that was ridiculous for a 10-year-old car, it was a 2012 Jeep Wrangler, they said they would run the numbers, and then they eventually got back to us in about a day saying that the best they could do was $7,000. After some deliberation amongst ourselves, we decided that was way too much money to put into an almost 10-year-old car that had close to 130,000 miles on it. We decided that we were going to try and sell it to a private party, and then we would take that money combined with the $10,000 that we would have had to pay to repair it towards a new vehicle. But we weren't really in a rush because we were both working from home, so one car was enough for us. It took a little bit of coordination, but it worked out. However, a couple of weeks after the car died, my husband heard back from his employer saying that he was expected to go back into the office in February. At that point, having just one car wasn't going to work for us anymore, so we knew we needed a car by February. We started to do some research to determine what we were going to need, and all we heard about was how the car market was super crazy and that it was possible that it would take months for a new car to arrive, and then the used car inventories were really low and the prices were not making any sense. Ultimately, when we started looking at used car prices, it just didn't make sense because the prices were really high compared to what they were a couple of years before, and then they were almost comparable to new car prices. So we decided that we were gonna go with a new car. We narrowed down our choices to 5 cars. One option was the Acura RDX, another option was the Audi Q5, number 3 was BMW X5, number 4 was the Lexus RX 350, and for a very short period of time time, we considered a Tesla Model X. When we realized that cars were taking several months to arrive, we thought that it would be in our best interest to start ramping up our search pretty quickly. In the process of researching cars, since we also looked at the Tesla, we also learned about the plug-in electric drive motor vehicle credit. That was a mouthful, so I am going to refer to this as the PEV going forward. After everything we learned about the PEV, we narrowed down our list further because some of these cars either did not have an electric option, or the electric option that they had did not qualify for the IRS credit. For example, if a vehicle is a hybrid, like the Lexus RX 350h, but it's not a plug-in, it doesn't qualify. The Tesla Model X did qualify at some point. However, they have reached the manufacturer quota, therefore they no longer qualify. So using that information, we were able to narrow our list of 5 even further. On to the final decision. If you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like button so the algorithm knows that it's good, and of course subscribe for more content. If you think any of the information that I provide here might be helpful to somebody else, be sure to share it with them. Ultimately, we ended up going with the BMW X5 X-Drive 45e model. We also got the climate package because we live in a cold weather climate. We figured if we're going to have a luxury car, it doesn't hurt to spring an extra $1,500 for the climate package, where we got heated seats and the heated steering wheel. The total MSRP came out to $69,650. There were a couple of incentives that were available. We qualified for some of them, but not all of them. The first one is the military discount of $3,500. We did qualify for that because my husband is a veteran. The second one is the PEV, which is the $7,500 credit on your taxes from the IRS. It's important to note that this credit is non-refundable. Really, the only way that you're going to get it is if you have a liability of at least $7,500. That's how you're going to get most of the credit. If your tax liability is less than $7,500, or if you have no tax liability, that credit really does not help you at all. And then our state has a credit for plug-in electric vehicles. However, they have a cap on the purchase price of $50,000, which means that we were not able to qualify for this credit. And then at the time we were looking, the other program that they had was a BMW program, where if your previous car that you are getting rid of is also a BMW, they are going to offer you a $2,500 credit as well. We were not eligible for that because, as I previously mentioned, it was a Jeep Wrangler, not a BMW, so that was $0. If you look at these incentives, these are actually part of the reason why we went with this car. Because when you look at the vehicles that did not qualify for the credit, after you adjust the MSRP for those credits, the military discount and the IRS credit, you really end up looking at virtually the same price. On to the buying process. The first dealership that we went to after we did all of our research and settled on a car, we went in and we were able to test drive the vehicle. We knew what we wanted, and as long as the car drove well and it handled well, we knew that we were going to buy it. After the test drive, we did make an offer to purchase the car. However, the car salesperson came back after we showed him exactly what we wanted. He built the car, he did a printout of the vehicle along with the MSRP, and then he said that negotiations started with a $3,000 market adjustment over MSRP, meaning right out of the gate, he wouldn't even talk to us unless we were willing to start at nearly $73,000, which to me, I found to be unacceptable. I understand there's a chip shortage. I understand that there are supply chain issues all over the country. However, I think this is the equivalent of exploitation and price gouging for you to say that you're going to advertise a vehicle for a certain price, but then you won't even negotiate at that price. I did not like the bait and switch. And it wasn't even a matter of if we paid $3,000, we could get it faster. They could make no promises that the car would even be there in 3 months. It was just going to be a wait and see. I found that to be unacceptable, so we declined on the spot and we decided to restart our search. This time we knew what what we were dealing with, and we decided to only work with dealers who were not going to charge a dime over MSRP. Which brings us to our next experience. I contacted a couple of dealerships, and the one that was the second closest to me agreed to sell us the car at MSRP. Their only requirement was that we had to finance through them, but their rates was pretty good at 1.9%, so I had no issues with that. They said I needed to pay $5,000 to reserve the car, but when the car arrived, if for any reason I did not like it, my deposit was fully refundable. They were not intending to keep it. At that time, they were estimating approximately 3 months to delivery. We ordered the car in the middle of October, and ultimately it was delivered on December 29th. And it's important to note that this is the last day in 2021 that we would have been able to take possession of the car because of the holiday. They were not going to be open on the 30th. They were not going to be open on the 31st. And I was not going to be able to get the car until the 3rd. Normally, that wouldn't have been a big deal because it's a holiday weekend. My husband's not working, I'm not working, and my son's not going to daycare. One car would have been just fine. It was not a matter of logistics, but it was a matter of taxes. The issue with the IRS credit was that in order for you to claim the credit for the tax year, you needed to have it in your possession by December 31st. If we had taken possession of the car anytime after December 31st, I would have had to wait until January 2023 when I'm filing for 2022 taxes in order to claim that credit. So we were very excited about being able to pick up the car, and we went to the dealership as soon as they called us. Well, there was a bit of a snafu when we arrived there. Everything was going well until the person who was doing the financing told us that he needed us to verify the military credit. He asked us to confirm that it was actually $500. I said, no, it's not $500, it is $3,500. He did the "let me talk to my manager" song and dance, and then he returned to us and told us that we could either get the $3,500 or we could get the 1.9 BMW financing, but not both. I was taken aback by that because had I known that the BMW financing wasn't going to be an option, I would have came prepared with my own financing from my own lender. We bank at a couple of different places. It would not have been very difficult for us to get a loan on our own and come prepared with a pre-approval. Ultimately, they chalked it up to miscommunication and pointed fingers at each other, but they insisted that the rules were the rules and I could only have one and not both. I did the math in my head really quick and I realized that the military credit at $3,500 was way more valuable because I had a backup plan. When they ran the credit on their own, they told me that the best rate they could give me was 2.64 from Bank of America. I was sitting there on my phone doing a pre-approval application with Bank of America, and I ended up getting 1.9% because I am a Bank of America customer. I was asking them why I could not use my own pre-approval letter, and they insisted that it wasn't possible. I suspect it has something to do with whatever kickback that they get from the lender, and that is probably where that difference in interest rate comes from, but I decided not to push it because I knew I had a plan. Ultimately, in order to make sure that I keep the military credit, I went ahead and purchased the car at 2.64%. But then as soon as I got home, I started a financing application to refinance that loan with a different lender. And within a few days, once I received the loan information from Bank of America, I used the account number, the 10-day payoff quote, and everything else that was included in that loan letter to complete my refinance application, and ended up with the same 1.9% that BMW financing had been promising me. And this is the story of how we ended up with an additional $56,000 in consumer debt at 1.9%. And I want to do a little bit of a breakdown of that debt and a strategy to pay it off by talking about the cost and the payoff plan. In that final truth and lending disclosure that we received after we closed on the refinance, the direct cost of the loan is approximately $3,000. It's actually a little under $3,000, closer to $2,900 for the life of the loan. However, I find that is offset by the PEV credit from the IRS, as well as the low gasoline expenses. For starters, we happen to have solar panels in the house, which means that this is actually working out pretty well for us. I did mention that we took took possession of the car on December 29th. Granted, we do not drive that often because we both work from home. Really, most of the driving that we do consists of dropping off our son at daycare and picking him up in the afternoon. On the weekends, we also do some grocery shopping. But right now, it is the middle of February. Not once have we had to put gas in the tank. And if we look at the fuel levels, it still shows that we are at approximately 95% of the gas tank. That is the same gas that we got from the dealership when they filled up the tank before they sent us home. By comparison, my car, which is a traditional gas vehicle, has had to get filled up approximately 1 to 2 times a month, depending on where I've been. It is an SUV, but it is a small crossover SUV, not a huge gas guzzler. But I think it offers a pretty good perspective about the fuel savings that we experience by having a hybrid. However, there's also a big opportunity cost. Ultimately, a $56,000 loan is a pretty sizable loan. That leads to a big monthly payment, which in turn means that we've had to adjust our emergency fund because that's one additional expense that we didn't have before. But most importantly, it is the value of future investments that we're missing out on. I did the math, and if we had just used the cash that we put down and the cash that we used to cover the taxes and the registration and the licenses, if we use that cash to just buy a car outright and we had fully invested that $50,000, we would have gotten approximately $17,000 in returns if we did an S&P 500 index fund. So with that said, what is our payoff plan? Despite this cost, the car has already been purchased and we have to pay for it. But honestly, at 1.9%, the interest rate is so low and inflation is so high, it doesn't make any sense to accelerate the payment schedule. Right now, my plan is to only make the minimum payment and see how it goes. The I bonds that we're investing in are making more per month than we are paying on this car. We invested in some I bonds in October at 3.5%, and then we did an additional investment in January at 7%. And given the fact that the most recent inflation numbers indicates that inflation remains high, when the rates adjust in April for the month of May, we don't anticipate that they'll drop below 7%, let alone below 3%, meaning the interest that I am getting from the I bonds are more than enough to cover the interest that I'm paying on this car several times over. It feels like it makes no sense, mathematically speaking, to speed up the monthly payments. However, there is one thing that I'm undecided about. I'm expecting to get a pretty big tax refund as a result of this entire situation with the tax credit. And I'm still on the fence about what to do with that tax refund. On the one hand, the low interest and the high inflation means that it doesn't make too much sense to pay it faster. On the other hand, this is not money that I was expecting to have, and this is money that we're only getting as a direct result of purchasing this vehicle. So it feels wrong to put that money towards anything but the car. So what are some lessons learned? Ultimately, my answer to you is don't do this. I did it, but I really would not advise other people to do it. I think that I have a better handle on my finances than the average person, so I'm willing to take some level of risk that maybe other people shouldn't. And this is one of the things that I would tell people not to do. There are much better things that you can do with your money, and $50,000 today might make the difference at retirement. Sure, that's not what's going to determine whether or not you can retire at all, because over the span of your life, it is a small amount of money, but it could make the difference between whether or not you retire at 60 or whether you retire at 65. But how does this affect us? Before I talk about how it affects us, I want to do a little reminder of who we are as a family, how we handle our finances, and where we stand. Currently, we have an emergency fund in place that is sufficient to cover 6 months of expenses if we make no lifestyle changes. If we make some lifestyle changes, we are able to stretch it further. We pay our credit cards in full every month. We never carry a balance. Neither one of us have student loans at this point, even though we both went to graduate school. We also max out all of our retirement accounts, meaning both IRAs and both 401ks are maxed out. So that means for 2022, we're looking at $20,500 for each of us in our 401ks and $6,000 for each of us in our IRAs. Additionally, we have one child for whom we make 529 contributions. I say all of this because I want to be clear that our finances are in a place where this is not going to make or break us. Is it optimal? To be completely honest, no. It is not the best financial move that we could have made, but it is not going to put us in the poorhouse. We're not going to live in squalor in our golden years, and we are still putting more money in investments every month than we ever put towards this car. However, it still cost us to the tune of $17,000 over the course of the loan, because that is money that could have been invested rather than money that is being used to pay down a consumer debt. Cars are not investments. They are depreciating assets. There is no ifs or buts about that. The last 2 years has spun the world on its head, and it has made it so that we can no longer recognize the world that we live in when it comes to car purchases. Used cars are going up in value. That is not a practice that is here to stay, and we cannot rely on that to make long-term decisions.
As always, I want to hear from you. The first question is, how badly did we mess up? Did we royally screw this up and we are in a position now we have set ourselves back? And the next question that I have is, what should we do with any tax refunds that we may get out of this whole thing? If we messed up pretty badly, do you think we should apply it to the loan balance and reduce it? There's no prepayment penalty, of course. But if you think my math is correct regarding inflation and the possible returns from investment, as well as the money that we have in I-bonds, should we do something else with that money? And of course, I want to know about you. Are you in the car market? And when do you think things are going to stabilize? Leave me a note in the comment section below.
I would like to continue sharing my thoughts on all things money with you. So I would appreciate it if you could help out the channel by liking this video and sharing it with anyone you think might benefit from it. If you want to see more content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can know when new videos come out. I'll see you in the next one.